What's up, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Ruby Pearl Glamper True Crime Podcast. My name is Amy. Welcome to my show. Hope everyone is having a better night than I am. I am in a pretty foul mood, upset, and I had a very important trip planned for today and tomorrow, but I had to take my car in on Monday and had some work done on it. And there was an issue that they didn't see when I took it in last week, so they didn't order the parts. And so they spent all day working on it, and then I had to order this other part, so I had to wait. And now the damn internet's gonna cut out. Whatever. But anyway, I had to cancel my trip, and I'm very upset about it. But anyway, as if I weren't already in a foul mood, I'm laying in bed a little while ago, and I'm watching court TV and watching Vinnie Politan's show. And who does he have on? The Laundrie family attorney, Stephen Bertilino. That man makes my blood boil. Makes my blood boil. His conduct, and I've talked about this a lot, his conduct throughout this whole, situation with Gabby, the murder of Gabby Petito, and her murderer, Brian Laundrie, and his parents, staying silent and putting Gabby's parents and family through living hell. The things he said about John Walsh, the things he said about Dog the Bounty Hunter, two people who had also had children murdered. He's just a disgusting human being. And, I've talked a lot about this situation. I've talked a lot about this whole ordeal, what is the law and what is, morally right. And, we are bound to more law than we are what's morally right. We have more rights by law than just what's morally right. But Vinnie Politan had Stephen Bertilino on, and discussing the pretrial motion today in the civil suit filed by Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's parents, against Chris and Roberta Laundrie. Brian's parents. And it's whether or not they intentionally caused this family grief by not talking to them and not telling them what they knew, what had happened to Gabby and everything. They protected themselves, they protected Brian, and that is their right, and that is what their attorney, Stephen Bertilino, told them to do. So the world frantically looked for Gabby Petito. Her parents frantically looked for her. Thanks to some YouTubers, she was found in the Grand Tetons. And then Brian went missing and spent however long it was, I don't even care to remember, looking for his sorry ass. And he had killed himself. Hey Griff, how are you? But through this whole ordeal, you know, this is it's been about what's lawfully right and what's morally right. And Chris and Roberta Laundrie, along with myself, I'm all right. I'm in a foul mood. You know that I was already in a foul mood anyway, and having to cancel my trip and you know, and then dickhead and his bullshit and that upset me, and you know, and then I have to hear fucking Stephen Bertilino's mouth. Hey Mark, how are you? You know, and Stephen Bertilino makes my blood boil as bad as BK does. The man is just awful. But we all have the same rights as if this were our own child. If Brian was our own child, that we have the right to, protect him, and we all have the right to remain silent and not incriminate ourselves or whatever, and we know that. Anybody that, you don't even have to have a law degree. Hi honey, I love you. I miss you. What are you doing? Due process. Yeah. I got my own due process I'd like to hand out. But we all have that right, and I'm not disputing that. I've not ever disputed that, but this is a case that has just so crossed the line between what's lawfully right and what's morally right. And, lawfully right has won out pretty much. And on another live the other night about justice. What is justice? Who gets justice? Hey Pam, girl, I know you feel like SHIT. I just want y'all to get to feeling better. What is justice? And who gets justice? And, I talked about this girl that had murdered two of my friends, and and murdered another man who was a friend, who was the former husband of a fellow West Memphis 3 advocate, lady that I'd met through advocacy, for the West Memphis 3, and her daughter. And I begged the prosecuting attorney, who was a piece of shit too, just like Stephen Bertilino, to give her the death penalty. Jolie's family wanted the death penalty, but she made a plea deal and she went to prison for the rest of her life. But she never had to pay for murdering my friend Jeff. She pinned that all on her boyfriend. But when we go to court, when we have a case and we go to court, and some people go to prison, some people are found innocent, some people are found guilty, some people get 20 years or 10 years, or they get life without parole, or they get the death penalty, or and so what is, and is that enough? Is that justice? What is justice? Because although we are not supposed to go by the Old Testament, in the Old Testament it says an eye for an eye. But, we have courts of law that are supposed to deal with that kind of thing now. We're not supposed to be vigilantes and living in the Wild West and killing each other and, getting our own justice. But, does Gabby ever get justice? Is Brian taking his own life? Is that justice for her? That's an eye for an eye. And, this is just one of those cases that, just leaves you WTF, and it's devastating, and it's depressing to see the pain in those families, and Joseph Petito and his wife, and Nicole and her Schmidt and her husband. And the Laundries didn't even show up today. They didn't even show up for court today for this pretrial motion. One of the newscasters drove by the Laundrie's house, and Chris was vacuuming his truck out. And as soon as he saw her, he quit vacuuming and took tail and ran his little fat ass in his house. These people are cowards. They are cowards. They have, I don't think they have any intentions of ever facing the Petito Schmidt family, because they know what they did. They know what they're guilty of. They know what their son did. They know they covered it up. They know they knew. Fucking Stephen Bertilino knows that he knows. And, it just galls me that he dances around that same old question every time you ask him. Any of the news journalists asked him, and, Denny Politan asked him tonight. you know, about what he knew. Yeah, their son was a coward too. And, I normally don't like to use the word coward when referring to someone who has taken their own life. Because as, someone who has battled suicidal thoughts, until you've been there and battled that, you don't call somebody a coward, because you have no idea the pain that someone goes through, whether it's in pain, pain that they have had inflicted on them. Whatever pain that they're living with is, I just do not like to refer to anyone as a coward. Tell y'all a true story. When Robin Williams died, Todd Bridges, who played Willis Jackson on Different Strokes, he came out and he called Robin Williams a coward. And, I've always been a big supporter of Todd Bridges. I was a big fan of Different Strokes. And I called him out for what he said. You, of all people, what you've been through and what you've been put through. The man was molested as a child and as a child actor. And, he did time in jail. He was accused of murder. He was, I just could not believe, of all people, that he would call Robin Williams a coward. And I called him out on it. And you know what he did? He blocked me. Todd Bridges blocked me on Twitter for putting the truth, for slapping him in the face with the truth. He of all people should have, should understand what someone living with depression and suicidal thoughts and whatnot goes through. The title of his book is called Killing Willis. And if you were ever a fan of the show Different Strokes, for him to title his book that, and for him to talk about how he wanted to kill Willis Jackson Drummond, it was devastating to me as a fan, But enough on him. Does this end, this has ended in a life for a life, a child for a child. And it's devastating. And it's, the Laundries have not spoke, not one time. So we don't know what kind of pain they're going through. I mean, I'm sure they are. But what do you say? Dare I say karma? Dare I say, you get what you deserve? That's not something normally, it's not something I would ever tell a family. Ever. But, this eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. And there was something that that Stephen Bertilino said on the show tonight. Vinnie Politan asked him about the notebook, and has he read the contents of the notebook? Have Brian's parents, read the contents of the notebook? I doubt that we, the John Q. public, as he likes to call us, will never know what was in that notebook. All we know is that he did confess to murdering Gabby. I don't know whether the Petito Schmidt family have seen what was written in the notebook, or seen what, Brian had to say. I don't know if they lawfully gave her family that information or not. And that's not something I would ever even ask them. But Gabby needs to know. And the only way I feel like that Gabby can rest peacefully is to know why Brian did this to her. I had a very awkward dream the day that they found Brian's remains. And they talked about this notebook. And, and of course everyone was, this was before it was released that he had written a note in these notebooks or whatever. And I had this really awkward dream, and y'all don't laugh at me because I can't control the contents of my dreams. But I had this dream that I was living, but I think her parents are good. I don't know, Marg, and that's what I'm fixing to talk about. I want to tell y'all about this dream that I had. I dreamt that I was living at the Laundrie house with Chris and Roberta and Brian. And Brian would not talk to me. And I didn't understand why he wouldn't talk to me. He was just quiet, and would avoid me, and I would sit there and, what is wrong? What is wrong, Brian? What is wrong? And I'm sitting there, and a friend in the dream brings me a flash drive and says that, and tells me that tells me that Brian had written to Gabby, that Brian had reached out to Gabby. But for some reason, I couldn't let Brian know that I knew, and I couldn't let, and my friend brings me this flash drive, secretly. And so I hid it inside of a pillowcase. Now remember, y'all, this is a dream, okay? But I hid this flash drive with the contents of this email and stuff from Brian to Gabby. And I'm sitting there in this bedroom, and Joseph and Gabby show up. Gabby and her father. And they come in, and I see just the desperation on Joseph Petito's face in this dream. and I see the desperation on Gabby's face. And she asked me to give her that flash drive because she desperately needs to know what Brian wrote her. She desperately needs to know. And she and her dad are begging me to give her this flash drive of what Brian wrote to her that I had hidden in this pillowcase. And, you know, I've had some pretty peculiar things happen in my sleep and dreams and messages and things like that. And, you know, people can choose to believe me or not. You know, I know what's true. I don't need to prove it to anyone, but that dream tells me that Gabby desperately needed to know why Brian did this. That she desperately needed to know why he killed her. So how, you know, how does she get that? I don't have that information, you know. I don't know what was written in that notebook. Believe me, I would hand it over in a heartbeat, but, you know, I don't have that information. And so how does she get it? How does she get it? How does her family get it? How does she get some kind of justice, some type of an explanation as to why did you do this to me? Why did he do this? And, you know, that's what this whole civil lawsuit is about. I mean, if anybody thinks it's about money, you're nuts. Because it's not about money. I mean, they're not even really suing them for that much money. It's not like they're suing them for, you know, $10 million like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So, you know, this is not about money. This is about holding someone accountable for, you know, what they did. And here's the thing. And, you know, this is the thing that Stephen Bertilino loves to avoid answering. You know, when Chris and Roberta and Brian called him and hired him as attorney, and what they said to him is privileged. Attorney-client privilege. We know that. We know that. But every time that a news journalist has tried to get him to just say it, look, I knew. They called me and told me what Brian had done. Brian told me he had killed Gabby. Just fucking admit it, Stephen Bertilino. Just admit it. We all know it. Just quit hiding behind your attorney license. Quit hiding behind the law. Just admit it. We know it's attorney-client privilege. We know all that shit. But just admit that you knew that Brian Laundrie had murdered Gabriella Petito long before her body was found. You knew. His parents knew. Everyone knew. They knew. Just admit it. It's just what's so frustrating, you know. I get the law. I understand the law, you know. But, and basically he's saying, yeah, you know, I knew Brian had killed Gabby, but I didn't have to tell y'all. By law, I don't have to tell y'all. His parents don't have to tell y'all either. That's the real truth about it. That's the reality of it. So, let's just be real about it for once. Let's just be real about it. But, I hope that Gabby's family, I hope that this lawsuit will stand. I don't know that it will. The judge is supposed to give his ruling in 2 weeks. And what the issue at hand is, they're saying that the statement that Stephen Bertilino released on behalf of the Laundrie family, when they knew damn well that Gabby was not alive anymore, that we know that there is an investigation going on and in the Grand Tetons, and we hope that Gabby is found and reunited with her family. And he told Vinnie Politan that this was basically a generic statement, because the press was hounding him and hounding them for some type of a statement. So that's basically the generic statement that he gave. And he wrote it. He wrote the statement himself. This statement did not come out of Chris and Roberta Laundrie's mouth. They did not write it. He wrote it. And, did it give Gabby's family false hope that she was still alive and that she would be found? And did it, put them through unnecessary hope and unnecessary grief and whatnot? Well, hell, they've been put through unnecessary grief for weeks when they kept trying to call the Laundries and Brian and this Cassie and everybody, and nobody would answer their phone calls. This had been going on for weeks. So this statement, made after they were finally legally able to report Gabby missing, and that they found out that Brian had came home without Gabby in Gabby's van. It's just furthering the inevitable. So, this is just one of those cases that where's the justice, and does Gabby get justice? How does Gabby get justice? We honestly, we as the John Q public, it's not really, technically it's not really for us to judge. It's for her family and what they can live with and what they need. It's not about us and us true crime sleuths who, want to know the scoop, want to know the story. It's what they can live with and what will give them some type of a peace, some type of peace and some type of justice, I just hope that they somehow get it. But that's what this civil lawsuit is about. It's the same thing with the civil lawsuit against O.J. Simpson. That's what that lawsuit was about. That lawsuit was about making, him be held accountable for murdering Nicole and Ron. We all know he did it. They knew he did it. OJ knows he did it. And if suing somebody is the only way that you can get them held accountable in a court of law, then, so be it. Same thing happened with Bobby Brown, Bobby Christina's father, singer Bobby Brown. Her boyfriend is responsible for her death. But they were not going to be able to, as far as a state case against him. Okay, Marg. As far as a state case against, I can't even think of his damn name now, but I don't think they were going to be able to prove it in a court of law. And so Bobby Christina's family chose to sue him civilly. And he was found liable. Now, have they ever gotten a dime out of him? No. Just like the Goldmans have never gotten a dime out of OJ. Because when you sue somebody civilly like that, most of the time it's because a murder conviction didn't hold up or wasn't going to hold up, and that's the only way that you can make those people pay for what they did. And plus, in a civil trial, a lot more evidence is allowed than in a state trial. So, they didn't have as much opportunity, like in the OJ case, to, confuse the jury and pull all that, Mark Furman's a racist and all that crap. They weren't able to, to pull all that big, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit Johnny Cochran bullshit. So that's that's what this is about. This is about justice for Gabby in this civil suit. Because, I can't sit here and account for how the Petito Schmidt family feels about the fact that Brian took his own life. They know he's never going to face a court of law. He's never going to go to prison or anything. So it's and another thing is, all that time that Brian was home, we don't know what Chris and Roberta could have possibly done to help him cover up what he had done. I remember early on, a neighbor had said that they spotted Roberta helping Brian clean out Gabby's van. Well, that right there is tampering with evidence. And Stephen Bertilino has admitted that there was talk about possible charges or whatever, but I guess they just weren't going to, they just didn't have any proof. They couldn't prove anything. They couldn't prove that Chris and Roberta had, maliciously did anything to cover up Gabby's murder or anything as far other than just knowing. It really galled me that one of the things that Stephen Bertilino said to Vinnie Politan was he tried to throw in the little excuse that when he was being pressed for what Chris and Roberta and Brian had told him, he covered that up by saying, I've represented a lot of people over the years, and not all my clients have told me the truth. So he wanted to kind of put it out there that and put that insinuation out there that that they possibly didn't tell him that what he had done, that he might have claimed to him, I don't know where she is, or I left her in Utah and she was just fine, and that man wouldn't know the truth if it slapped him in the face. That man dances around the truth as much as BK does. And it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And when people like me and as well as many other people, we see this fuckery, as Griff likes to call it, and we see this truth, and we see this dancing around the truth, and insinuating, and this, and it just makes people sick. It really makes people sick when they see others buying the bullshit. And, it's just so frustrating. I've said this before, that, when you live on a higher dimension and a higher level of consciousness, and you're living with all of these 3D conscious people, that it's like, it's so frustrating. It's so, I see this, why can't you see it? Why don't, why I woke up, why can't you wake up? We talked about this on Griff's channel earlier today, about this, fuckery and these minions, and believing stuff that these people say, and I, it was just beating a dead horse. It was beating a dead horse, because you just cannot slap the truth into people. You cannot slap the reality into people. They have to do it on their own. They have to figure it out on their own. They have to wake up on their own. As the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to the trough, but you can't make them drink. You can tell somebody the truth, but you can't make them believe it. And it's just so frustrating, when to have to live amongst these people who want to claim that they're woke. Oh yeah, all these politically correct people out here, and that I get so mad when the media will refer to them as the woke people, because they're not the woke people. They're making a joke. They're calling them woke people, but it's a joke, and it's just, hey Charlie K, how are you? It's just so frustrating, And if you were a parent of Gabby, would you feel ripped off because yeah, I would. I have to say I would, and my daughter, who I don't know if she's still in the chat or not, she and I have talked about this, and we've talked about these cases, like like back when the deal with Michelle Carter happened, and how I could, I couldn't face that. I couldn't look how could I look somebody's parents in the eye that my daughter had convinced their son to kill himself, like Michelle did with Conrad Roy. I mean, that is because that makes you feel like a failure as a parent. And I wonder that about Chris and Roberta. Did they feel like failures? Does Chris take any blame for the fact that maybe he was the cause of Brian having a temper, and not being able to control his temper or whatever? A real parent, I would have to take responsibility as a parent myself. I feel like in some sort of fashion for my kid, killing their boyfriend or, girlfriend, whatever, or convincing their boyfriend, girlfriend to kill themselves. I raised my kids better than that. I wasn't a perfect mom, but my kids know better than something like that. Especially, we had a couple of incidences with a couple of my youngest daughter's friends that we needed to, that still weirds me out to this day. Like why did they not find him when they first went down there, and with the car still there and everything? If that's where they thought he was, in that spot, why didn't they go to there first? But no, they were more worried about their car getting towed, and they just left him to, well, maybe he'll come home in a day or two. Just let him be and whatever, I cost the state of Florida no telling how many millions of dollars searching for him and whatnot. But we had a couple of incidences with my daughter's, a couple of her friends, and we did what was right. There was one instance where we went and spoke with the school counselor and reported to her what was going on with this friend of hers. And then this other friend that she had that kept running away, my daughter went on Facebook. She found out where she was. We went straight to her adopted, not adopted, but her foster parents, which were her cousins, and told them, and we went straight to the police department. And, it's about doing the right thing. Then what, Michelle Bryant? Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be hard to, to stand by your child, but I would, but I would not make, I could not make excuses. I could not, or lie to someone, or it just, I mean, I kind of understand why Chris and Roberta don't want to face Gabby's parents. They're ashamed. They've proven time and time again they're ashamed. They can hide behind the whole right to remain silent all they want to. I mean, they didn't even show up for court today. What does that tell you? Chris Laundrie was vacuuming his truck out while this family is still fighting for justice for their daughter that your son murdered. And you're vacuuming your truck out like nothing's going on. I don't get it. I really don't. This Gabby Petito case has just been one of the most devastating cases I've ever followed. Just like the Michelle Carter case. And, it's just heartbreaking, because these people need to answer for what they've done. And, in the Michelle Carter case, technically, there was no law against assisted suicide in that state. But, they got her with the maliciousness in the things that, you know, she was saying in those text messages. And when she told him, when he got out of that truck and she told him to get back in that truck, that was all she wrote. That was all that judge needed to hear. And I still to this day don't understand in her fucked up mind how she thought that him taking his life would, you know, was the right thing to do to end his pain. And then her little fairy tale of thinking that, you know, she's Leah Michelle and that Conrad is Corey Monteith, that they are Finn and Rachel, you know, from Glee. Just sickening. Totally sickening. But I felt compelled to come on and talk about it and, you know, share my thoughts and my frustrations and you know, how I feel about this whole case. You know, a lot of people, Gabby captured a lot of people's hearts. She really did. And, you know, she is who inspired me to start my podcast, you know, at 52 years old, retired and disabled, but yet, you know, still somewhat half-assed in my right mind, and having such a long history and long background. And exactly, we'll never know, you know, just how much abuse she did endure, Marg. You know, all we have is that tape, you know, that police stop, and then of course her death, that was clearly proven that Brian strangled her and you know, to death. But, you know, I have a long history in true crime, and yeah, blaming herself. Yeah, that is domestic violence 101. It's always the victim's fault. It's never the perpetrator's fault. And even the victims blame themselves. But with the history, you know, that I had having true crime, and as long as I followed cases and studied cases and went to college, and you know, it's my passion. And I've mentioned this in another live that I've actually participated in radio for years. I had a bunch of friends back in the 90s that all worked for country music stations, and I would go sit and hang out at the radio station with them and do shows with them and stuff, and you know, it was a lot of fun, and I have been a show legend over at T2Q radio, and for several years, and you know, I just Quincy changed his platform, and I still love him, and and I still love, all my fellow show legends over there, but I wanted to branch off on my own and do what I was good at and do what I was passionate about, and I got that inspiration from Gabby. So, but y'all, I'm gonna go to bed. Like I said, it's, my God, that the heat today, it was ungodly, and it just drained me today. And like I said, I'm just, not in a very good mood, in a very foul mood, and just kind of ready to go wind up the day and wake up again tomorrow, But that damn Stephen Bertilino, he just, oh my God, that man boils my blood. And when somebody like that boils my blood, I gotta speak up. I gotta say something. But everyone have a wonderful night. I have enjoyed it. Thanks to everyone who came in and participated in the chat. Griff and Shaughnessy and Marg and Charlie K and everyone. And I love the little community that we've built. As far as, subs, and a lot of us are in a lot of the same chat rooms and follow each other as creators, and as Checking Conviction says, we are real crime in a true crime community, which I agree with, but actually what we are is real crime in a true crama community. And we got to get rid of that shit. We got to get rid of them folks, them people. But everyone have a wonderful night, and always please remember, be the change that you wish to see in this world. As Michael Jackson said, it starts with the man in the mirror. Peace out, everyone. Good night. I love you all. Take care.